Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for the organizing committee and the organizers to organize this educational activity, Child Behavior Management at Home. This topic is not new, and uh, it has been in discussion for many years, even centuries. The people always try to find the way how to raise the child in a good way. There are certain ways to deal with the children in certain ethnic groups, religious background, geographical areas, and the other sects in the society and community at large. But there are things which are universal. The good behaviors, the behavior shaping and teaching the kids and helping promote their social behaviors and social skills, and also help them learn the educational as well as the professional areas in life. So there are two major parts in behavior learnings. Number one is the educational part, the other is the social part. People can segregate into social emotional intelligence, and so on and so forth. But mainly the one part is the education, which is the academic curriculum, and the other part is the social, which means the social skills, the social know-how, and the successful social behavior, positive social behavior. So as you can see from this slide, it seems like very busy and a bit complex, but it gives the message that when the child borns, the infant, it carries the genetic material from the parents, from the mom and dad. Like if the hair colors are brown, the kids might have brown or might not have. It is coming from the ancestors, or the blue eyes, or the skin color. So similarly, some of the innate behaviors in the child comes through the parent genetics material. So with the careful review, the scientific research have shown that almost you can say the genetic material as well as the environment dictates how the child will behave in future life. And I would say it's more than that, because the genetic material comes from the parents, and then again the child is also living with the parents, so it has a double if effect on the child's behavior or child's thinking and behaving in a way, because the parents genes, because of the genes and their environment, they are acting in a certain way, and the child is having the genetic material from the parents plus the environment at home, because they spend most of the value time at home, although they spend time in the school as well and the neighborhood and so on and so forth. So it's a bit complex, and at time it can be confusing if we don't have a clear concept. For example, in this slide it says calm, friendly, curious, grounded, welcoming, observant, so on and so forth. These are the different aspects of the child behavior. So there are lots of possible reasons for difficult behavior. So we will be talking mainly about the difficult behavior. The good behavior is always welcome, and we all know that this is a gift from God. And many times the parents unknowingly, because of their good training and their own personal inner strength, they are behaving in a nice way, and in turn the children are watching them, observing them, and they copy their behavior, and in a way they learn the good behavior. So we will be talking mostly the bad behavior. This doesn't mean that the parent has a bad behavior, that's why the children are having bad behavior. There are certain things in the parenting skills we can talk about it, and those are the helpful points. The point is, the children are exposed to many mediums. For example, the nowadays, like the school environment, the neighborhood environment, the society at large, the country, city, town, economic status, and all these things affect the child how the child react or responds to these internal as well as external stimuli. On top of that, in the last couple of decades, the electronics have become much more pronounced in our life. For example, the videos, the Facebooks, the social media, the telephones, the communication, and there is a almost zero latent time in communication from one part of the world to the other part of the world. So entirely making the world as a global village. So all these variables factors into the child's behavior, how they are doing. And the child's behavior is impacted by all these things. So on the one hand, it's a monumental task to keep the children on the track, but on the other hand, it can work in the favor of the children, like because of the COVID and because of this pandemic, the kids could have learned, although it's not equal to face, but at least they could have done the Zoom sessions, the meetings, the teaching, something continued. So in this way, this is positive. Otherwise, it would have been much lapse, and the children could fall behind, and they could feel even more bored and upset and staying home, locked up, not being able to communicate with anyone. So it has a positives and negatives. If we can use these factors in our favor by regulating them, that will be the best way to move forward. So we'll be talking about the difficult behavior. There are a lot of possible reasons for the difficult behavior. Let's talk about the toddlers and the young children. Often it's just because they are tired, hungry, overexcited, frustrated, or bored. So in this slide, we are trying to convey the message that if the child, because the tiredness, hunger, physical pain, or physical discomfort is very much associated with the mental discomfort. I would say if the person is very, very comfortable and relaxed and well rested, the frustration tolerance can be much higher. They do not get irritable as easily as if somebody is very tired, they are overstressed, or they are overworked, lack of sleep, and all these things. So basically, to drawing the attention of the parents to look at the child as how they feel like, are they hungry? Because hunger in the children can cause low frustration tolerance. Even a well-behaved, very good child, when they are hungry, they might have a low frustration, and very minor trigger can make them upset or tired, or if they don't like certain activity or certain things and they feel bored. So these can bring down the threshold to get angry or agitated on the lower side. So how to handle difficult behavior? If problem behavior is causing you or your child distress, upsetting the rest of the family, it's important to deal with it. So this means if you don't address the difficult or stressful behavior of the child, it will be contagious. It will affect the other siblings, children in the home, as well as it can affect the parents, because if some child is unhappy or stressed and he continuously makes noises or continuously just tapping on the table because he is bored, and this is his way of expressing his irritability and anger. So parents who are doing something, they are being distracted or they are being upset because of that. They cannot focus, and this can lead to the environmental stress and aggressiveness maybe in the behavior, in the environment. One of the biggest challenge parents face is managing difficult or defiant behavior on the part of their children, whether they are refusing to put on their shoes or throwing full-blown tantrums. You can find yourself at a loss for an effective way to respond. In this slide, these are the common day-to-day difficulties with the parents face. So in this slide, I will give just one quick message. If you don't remember anything, just remember this one, and I think the job is done. Is means if you are a little bit more patient, it will save you time and energy later on. So if the child is throwing temper tantrum or taking time to put the shoes or throwing things, so you need to be patient and think about it. If you react immediately to the child's behavior, then you will come into the loop of bad child behavior, your reaction, the parents' reaction, the child is behaving even more worse, and the parents' behavior even being aggressive, and so forth. It keeps going on the upside. Child become more and more frustrated and stressed and agitated, and the parents will do that. In this way, you cannot control that. If you are a little bit patient, you can bring the child's frustration level maybe at a lower level, and by doing this, you can save the time and energy to bring the child back to the normal instead of being anxious, nervous, stressed, or aggressive. So I would say, similarly, as we say, the anxiety is contagious. For example, in the home there are four people, two children, parents, and one parent is very anxious. The other spouse member as well as the children, they will become anxious even without hearing a word, just by the facial expression and the nonverbal communication. So anxiety is contagious, because anxiety starts or turn on the alarm that something is unsafe, so which can cause people feel on the edge and start thinking about it and become nervous. Similarly, the calmness is also contagious. So it will not be wrong if I say that if child is agitated, irritated, and if the parents are very calm and tell him, okay, uh, Umar, this is fine, this will be okay. Maybe you are not happy because of certain things. Let's use the words, tell us how we can help you. And just calming words and calming voice can bring the child's stress down. So, similarly, the anxiety is contagious, the calmness is also contagious, and there is some sort of interaction. If your calming effect is stronger than the child's stress, the child will become calm, and the environment will be safe and sound. If it is the other way around, the child's aggressive behavior more than your calming effect, then he can convolute you in his agitation and aggressive mode. For parents at their wits and behavior therapy techniques can provide a roadmap to calmer, more consistent ways to manage problem behavior problems and offer a chance to help children gain the developmental skills they need to regulate their own behavior. So in this slide is talking about a little bit of a skills learning. For example, knowing that the parents, oftentimes the parents know that, oh, when Umar was not feeling well or he was angry, I should have calmed down and I should have listened to him instead of just started raising my voice or telling him, yes, you cannot do that, this is not acceptable. Instead of that, I should have more calmer. So what does it mean is, this parent does have a knowledge that they should behave in a certain way when the child is upset or aggressive, but they don't have the skill to act like that, which is more appropriate and positive during the real time. The real time when Umar was aggressive and angry and agitated, the parents got convoluted into it. They forgot to stay calm. They forgot to stay at peace and try to calm him down, rather than they themselves became anxious and kind of stressed, and they started raising their voice and trying to teach him a lesson or trying to command him, guide him, which is not the right time to do. So skills learning is very important. Knowledge we all have. Knowledge we can get from the books, from the lectures, from the meetings, and from learnings. The skills is to practice that knowledge in real time. Just like we can teach somebody how to fly a plane. We can tell them all the theoretical things. We can give them theoretical knowledge. We can teach them all the laws of physics, and we can teach them laws of all the related science. But unless that person fly the plane in a real life, they cannot be expert in that. So flying a plane is a skill. Learning about how to fly is an education, is a knowledge. ABC of the behavior management mean we are just talking about the basic things. Essentially, this may be a repetition, but repetition is good, that we are making a point that you take home message. To understand and respond effectively to problematic behavior, you have to think about what came before it as well as what comes after it. So in the next few slides, we'll be talking about what are the trigger points or what are the antecedents, what are the problem behavior, and what are the consequences. So you can see the problem behaviors: annoyance, anger, displeasure, violence, hostility to the different degree. Okay, so three important aspects for any behavior, any child's behavior. There will be a problem before the behavior. What happened? What lead to that unacceptable behavior? What lead to that aggressive or bad behavior? So those are also called as triggers. Then the behavior itself. What did the child do? Did he raise voice? Did he curse? Did he throw things or she throw things? No. And the consequences. What happened after the behavior? For example, the parents are doing the consequences for the child after the behavior, or they are punishing the child, or they are rewarding or reinforcing unknowingly. So these are the three main factors which involved in any behavior. So antecedent is a preceding factors that make a behavior more or less likely to occur. Another more familiar terms for this is the triggers. What are the triggers which are leading to this behavior? Learning and anticipating antecedent is an extremely helpful tool. So parents somehow day in and day out, they learn the triggers for their children. So this slide is basically talking about to recognize those triggers which make your child a bit angry and anxious. The behaviors are specific actions you are trying to encourage or discourage. And consequences are the results that naturally or logically follow a behavior. Consequences, positive or negative, affect the likelihood of a behavior will be recurring or not recurring. And the more immediate the consequence, the more powerful it is. The consequence, because human behavior around the world in all the geographic, ethnic, religious areas is revolved around the consequences. The consequences either make the behavior, reinforce the behavior, or exterminate the behavior. The first step in a good behavior management plan is to identifying target behavior. So what is the behavior we want to modify in a positive or a negative? For example, the good behavior is encouraged and the bad behavior is discouraged. These behaviors should be specific so everyone is clear on what is expected, not leaving any confusion or not making any assumptions. And these behaviors should be observable and measurable so that it can be replicated or it can be made clear to the child that these are the behaviors. So everyone agrees on the behavior, what happened. An example of poorly defined behavior is acting up or being good. A well-defined behavior would be running around the room like a bad, or starting homework on time is a good, So antecedent comes in many forms. Some prop up bad behavior, others are helpful tools that help parents manage potentially problematic behavior before they begin and bolster good behavior. Assuming expectations are understood. Don't assume kids know what is expected of them, because many times the parents assume that the kid should know this, why he didn't behave in a certain way. The kids are learning and forgetting. So the parent should not assume the kid has known. We need to first verify that the children know what is the acceptable behavior and what is not acceptable behavior by spelling it out, by bringing into attention, and then demands change from situation to situation. And when children are unsure of what they are supposed to be doing, they are more likely to misbehave. Calling things out from a distance. So this is also a communication skill. Many times it has been noticed that the parents are calling from a distance to the child at a different age and giving them some instructions. When child is deeply involved, some play or study or something else, they have a less tendency to listen, focus, or understand the command from the parents. When the parents say something and this communication has not been transferred to the child is not held responsible for that because the child did not get the message clearly. When the parents are feeling they have delivered the message. So this discrepancy between delivering and acceptance of the message can lead to the misunderstanding and problems. And then they assume the child is defiant. And then the parents can, get upset, they start yelling, raising voice. So the best way to do it, please make eye contact with the child, bring them in close vicinity or close to yourself, make an eye contact and give them the instruction, and even go step further to ask them to repeat the instruction. What did I say? And then you can see that the compliance will increase. The child will definitely follow the directions. And if then child does not follow the direction, then we can say that there is a behavior problem. Why the child is not following, and then that's another intervention. You need to sit with the child and talk to him and ask him why he's not doing or she is not doing or following direction. So this is another problem, which is transitioning without warning. Transitioning means from one activity to another activity. Transition can be hard for kids. Even it's a transition is difficult for the grown-ups even, but for the children it is even more difficult, especially in the middle of something they are enjoying. Having warning gives children the chance to find a good stopping place for an activity and makes the transition less fraught. So transition is also another delicate part which should be handled carefully in order to avoid any bad behavior. Asking rapid fire questions or giving a series of instructions. Delivering a series of questions or instructions at children limits the likelihood that they will hear, answer questions, remember the task, and do what they have been instructed to do so. This is meaning too many instructions giving in a one sentence or in a brief period of time and not getting the two-way communication done. So what does it mean is when to give the instruction, it should be very clear and in simple words. And if you are in doubt, ask the child to repeat it for you. So this is very important to have the instructions or the behavior, what you expect from the child should be conveyed properly. Okay, here are some antecedents that can bolster good behavior. Adjust the environment. When it's homework time, for instance, remove distraction like video screens, toys, provide a snack, establish an organized place for kids to work. So give them a transition time and provide the positive, helpful environment for the transition. And make sure to schedule some breaks. Attention is not infinite. So breaks are very important. As early part of the discussion, we said that feeling tired, feeling hungry, and feeling irritable can lead to not a good behavior. Be aware of the situation, consider and manage environmental and emotional factors. Hunger, fatigue, anxiety, distraction can all make it much more difficult for children to rein in their behavior. Okay. Make expectations clear. So communication. So in child's behavior, if you ask me, just number one most important thing, which is generalized and which is important and which is across the globe is understood the problem, is that very clear communication. So whatever you want to convey, it should be clear, and make the expectation, whatever you expect from the child, very clear to the child. You will get better cooperation if both you and your child are clear on what's expected. Sit down with him or her and present the information verbally, even if he or she should know what is expected. Clarifying expectation at the outset of a task helps head off misunderstanding down the line. So communication. Provide countdowns for transition. This is another way to ease the transition from one activity to another. Whenever possible, prepare children for an upcoming transition. Let them know when there are, say, 10 minutes, because keep reminding them is very important. These young minds cannot keep the information very clearly in their mind when they are busy in some of the tasks, some of the activity which they like, and they are very much deeply involved into it. So here is an example of the dinner time. You give them the heads up 10 minutes, and then you give them another reminding 2 minutes. Even we use this strategy for the grown-ups, like in the speakers. For example, when we do the lectures, the moderators usually give you 5 minutes heads up. Oh, you are having a 5 minutes more, and then they give you heads up 2 minutes remaining, because we are too much deeply involved into the activity. And this is good to prompt the person who is already very busy and focusing on the task. Okay, let's kids have a choice. As kids grow up, it's important they have a say in their own scheduling. Giving a structured choice. Do you want to take a shower after dinner or before? This is just an example. So giving them choice is actually empowering them, actually raising their self-esteem, and also increasing their trust in yourself. And they feel that they are being accepted, and they feel that they are part of the program, and they are part of the family. They are part of the whatever the activity is going on. Consequences. So consequences is after the behavior. So what happened after the behavior? If it's a good behavior, it's rewarded. If it's a bad behavior, there should be consequence to it, negative consequence to it. Not all consequences are created equal. So proportionate. We are talking about the proportionate consequences after the behavior. Some are an excellent way to create structure and help kids understand the difference between acceptable behavior and unacceptable behavior, while others have the potential to do more harm than good. As a parent, having a strong understanding of how to intelligently and consistently. So consistency is the most important thing. And even among the parents, mother and father, you need to be consistent, and you need to agree on the consequence of certain behavior for the child, so that the child is not confused. Okay. So as a parent, having a strong understanding of how to intelligently and consistently use consequences can make all the difference. Giving negative attention. This is very well-known phenomena. When the children are neglected or ignored, so they try to do some kind of negative behavior. So because of the negative behavior, parents have to leave whatever they are doing, and they have to attend to the children. And this is a reinforcement of the children's negative behavior. So I'll read it. Children value attention from the important adults in their life so much that any attention, positive or negative, is better than none. Negative attention, such as raising your voice or spanking, actually increases bad behavior over time, because this is a form of attention, and no attention is bad, it's worse. Also, responding to behaviors with criticism or yelling adversely affects children's self-esteem. Delayed consequences is no consequence. As you know, the delayed justice is no justice. So the most effective consequences are immediate. Every moment that passes after a behavior, your child is less likely to link her behavior to the consequences. So there should be cause and effect relationship very strongly. And in children, it's very important, because they cannot have a long-term memory. I mean, they do have a long-term memory, but this is very, very effective if the consequence comes immediately after the behavior. If it comes later, or it is done hours or days later, it becomes punishment. And this punishing for the sake of punishing, and it's much less likely to actually change the behavior. It can be helpful for the parents to have their frustration out, but it will not help the child. Disproportionate consequence is another problem. Parents understandably get very frustrated at times. They may be so frustrated that they overreact to certain minor mistakes or things. A huge consequence can be demoralizing for children, and they may give up even trying to behave. Positive consequence: when a child dawdles instead of putting on his shoes or picking up his blocks, and in frustration, you do it for him. You are increasing the likelihood that he will dawdle more next time. Consequences that are more effective begin with generous attention to the behavior you want to encourage. As we said that in the beginning, so we need to pay attention to what are the triggers, what are the antecedents, and then the behavior, and then organizing the consequences for that. Positive attention for positive behavior, giving your child positive reinforcement for being good helps maintain the ongoing good behavior. Positive attention enhances the quality of the relationship, improves self esteem, and feels good for everyone involved. Positive attention to brave behavior can also help attenuate anxiety and help kids become more receptive to instructions and limit settings. And ignoring actively. This should be used only with minor misbehaviors. This means we don't want to be overcritical. And I recall there is a very famous example we used to use when we were doing the child psychiatry training in Cornell, New York. So in our group sessions, we were starting and we were saying, when the parents were also invited to attend our sessions, we were saying it's a good example of the child is like making the pot by the expert. So if you press too tightly, the pot will be misshaped, and if you leave it alone, it will be irregular and ugly. So it needs a delicate balance in terms of raising the children, what you need to ignore and what you need to address. So the ignoring actively, this should used only with minor misbehaviors, not aggression and not very destructive behavior. So then if we ignore the destructive behavior, the child will learn that this is okay and that child can do it again. Active ignoring involves the deliberate withdrawal of attention, and it's a kind of unacceptability to certain behavior, minor kind of behavior, which are not very dangerous. When a child starts to misbehave as you ignore, you wait for positive behavior to resume. You want to give positive attention as soon as the desired behavior starts. So we need to encourage them for the positive behavior. If the negative behavior, just ignoring is a kind of consequence. The child don't like it. So hopefully we can use in child's favor that they stop the misbehaving and they stop the not good behavior, and they convert this with the positive behavior. By withholding your attention until you get positive behavior, you are teaching your child what behavior gets you to engage. Rewards are a tangible way to give children positive feedback for desired behavior. A reward is something a child earns, an acknowledgement that he or she is doing something that's difficult for her, but that's good. Rewards are most effective as motivators when the child can choose from a variety of things: extra time on the iPad, a special treat. This offers the child agency and reduces the possibility of a reward losing its appeal over time. Um, Rewards should be linked to specific behavior and always delivered promptly and consistently, as we discussed before. Timeouts, many parents ask about the timeouts. This is a very good tool, but very poorly managed. So at one point, I actually start promoting the timeout because of the misuse or abuse or improper use. So this is very, very important to use this appropriately in the child's benefit. Timeouts are one of the most effective consequences parents can use, but also one of the hardest to do correctly. As I said that in my experience, I have noticed it is very difficult to achieve that. So few things: be clear, establish which behavior will result in timeout. When a child exhibits that behavior, make sure the corresponding timeout is relatively brief. Don't make it too long when the child becomes hopeless, helpless. There is a rule of thumb or simple formula: the age of the child, the minutes you can use in the timeout, more or less, but don't follow it. I mean, it also varies from child to child. For example, if there is a 3-year-old child, you can use 3-minute timeout, but you can make it less if the child is very active and cannot sustain 3 minutes. It can be 2 minutes as well, or it can be 3.5 minutes as well. But always attend to the child's behavior, the gestures, and their level of frustration. And be consistent. Randomly administering timeouts when you are feeling frustrated undermines the system. So do not use a timeout as a stick, or do not threaten them the timeout for every minor little things, then it will lose its value. But you need to be consistent. If there is a certain behavior which need to be addressed, is followed by the child, it should be followed by the timeout. Set rules and follow them. During a timeout, there should be no talking to the child until you are ending the timeout. Timeout should end only once the child has been calm and quiet briefly. So they learn to associate the end of timeout with this desired behavior. Return to task. If timeout was issued for not complying with the task, once it ends, the child should be instructed to complete the original task. So it should not be it should not be a break, or it should not give them the reinforcement that, oh, they should do the behavior so that they can leave the homework, or they can leave some activity and go in the timeout where they have to do nothing and just sit in the corner. By practicing behavioral tools management at home, parents can make it a much more peaceful place to be. Parenting tips. Few. I mean, people know that, but make sure your display of affection for your child outnumber any consequences or punishments. Because there was a famous study which shows that for behavioral modification, the rewards works better than the punishments. So they have studied the group of children. The one group, they were trying to shape the behavior by giving them the rewards for the positive behavior. In the second group, they were giving some kind of negative consequences, the punishment for the bad behavior. So the study results were the positive behavior results, or the rewards group was more successful. There were more number of kids who had the positive behavior change in the rewards group rather than in the punishment group. Hugs, kisses, good-natured roughhousing, reassure your child of your love, praise and attention wherever is appropriate. Do not unnecessarily praise the child. They should know why they are being praised, and make sure that is a positive behavior, because this is very important for the child, may not be as much as for you. Prioritize rules. Rather than overloading your child with rules for the outset, which might frustrate him or her, prioritize those geared towards safety first and gradually add rules over time. Help your toddler follow this for the younger children. Set a good example. Children learn how to act by watching their parents. The best way to show your child how to behave is to set a positive example. It's normal for a younger child to have a temper tantrum. Tips on how to reduce the frequency, duration, and intensity of your child. Know your child's limits. Your child might misbehave because he or she doesn't understand or cannot do what you are asking. Explain how to follow the rule. Instead of saying stop hitting, offer suggestion for how to make play go more smoothly, such as, why don't you two take turns? Taking turns is very important, especially at this young age. Take no in stride. Don't overreact when your toddler says no. Instead, calmly repeat your request. You might also try to distract your child or make a game out of good behavior. So actually, at the age of 2 or in and around 2 years, the no is the famous word for the child. Boys or girls, boys usually more. So that no, they want to learn being independent. This is coming in the next lectures. We'll be talking more about the developmental milestones and what are the benefits of achieving the milestone and what are the consequences of not achieving the milestones at a certain developmental age. Pick your battles, so self-explanatory. Offer choices when possible. Do not just limit them or be concrete with them. Avoid situations that might trigger frustration or tantrums. For example, don't give your child toys that are too advanced for him or her. Avoid long outings in which your child had to sit still or cannot play, so those kind of things. Stick to the schedule. It's better to stick to the schedule. Keep certain kind of schedule. Although unstructured time is also helpful for the children, for their growth and for their creativity. But the structured time is important. As a baseline, they should have a structured time, and on top of that, you can add some unstructured times and areas. Encourage communication, proper communication, I would say. Remind your child to use the words instead of saying, making the gestures or making the shapes and hand gestures or things like that. Because using the words is very, very important for the children. The children who are more vocal and they have a better communication have less problems. in the social and academic areas. Also criticize your child behavior, not your child. For example, never say this child is bad or you are bad. So tell them, if you don't do this, this behavior is bad. If you stop this behavior, you are a good child. You are not a bad child, but this behavior is bad. Never resort to punishments that emotionally or physically harm your child. This is the, I think we all know that the spanking doesn't help, it hurts. So these are the websites, which is, if somebody is interested, can take the picture and visit for more knowledge and things. So I will stop here for the questions and comments, please. Thank you. So we are waiting for the questions. Any question, comment, suggestions? So the question is, please explain positive reinforcement. How is it used and why is it important to positively reinforce a child? Positive reinforcement means encouraging the good behavior. For example, the younger children, 3 year, 4 year, or even 5 year, or younger children, when they share things with their friends, it's very difficult at this age for them to, learn the sharing, how to share, give their toys or share their toys with the fellows. We encourage them and say good job. Even saying the good job is a positive, the positive reinforcement. So the positive reinforcement is well liked by them. Like just like grown-ups, when we tell them, oh, good job, wonderful, excellent, bravo. So all these things give you a very good feeling, and so does with the children. So when they hear these things, they try to do the behavior again and again, the same behavior, just to hear good job, just to hear wonderful. So this is basically is a positive reinforcement. So we should be keep doing this. This reinforcement is very important. For example, if sometimes the child is just sharing the toys or sharing things with the other child, to hear that word, if the parents don't do that or the caretaker doesn't do that, the child is waiting for the positive consequence. If they don't do that, there is a possibility and there is a risk of extermination of this good behavior. So that's why we say it should be the positive reinforcement should be consistent and it should be immediate. So that's why. And similarly, there are other behaviors like taking care of the younger child, or sharing things, or listening to the parents when you are going to the mall or anywhere, or following the direction. So all those behaviors are should be consistently and immediately encouraged. Any other question? Can you hear me? You cannot hear me. I don't know what happened, but I'm talking. I did answer the question. Can you hear me now? So the positive reinforcement, I will repeat that the positive reinforcement is very important. It should be consistent and immediate for the behavior, because it should have a cause and effect relationship. The child should know this is a good behavior and they like it when they hear a positive comments after the behavior, so that they repeat that positive good behavior. This is why the positive reinforcement should be done immediately and consistently. Any other questions? Any other question? Okay. Um, um, I think there's some technical issue. Um, I'm not here. Um, so I have a question. I don't know. First, you need to tell me if you can hear me so that I continue. First, please tell me on the WhatsApp that if you can hear me so that I can continue. Can you hear me? Okay, can you hear me? So I will read the question and I'm assuming that you guys can hear me. I have a 12-year-old who is homeschooling and doing hifz. I have a couple things I don't know how to deal with. He sits with the iPad to memorize Quran. Okay. And often I find him playing games. I try to endorse good behavior, but he will outright lie. Second, how do we stop children from making deals in order to do a task? So I'll answer the first question. 12-year-old is homeschooling and doing the hifz. make sure that follow the same thing what we just discussed in our talk, that they are not hungry, they are not tired, they are not frustrated, and they are ready to do the work, the homework. And plus give them the scheduled breaks so that they don't get bored. And after finishing the activity positively, consistently, and immediate reward for that, whatever you decide, it's an ongoing thing, so that we should do the same thing we will do. Unfortunately, it is very difficult. If they learn to lie and you do not appropriately handle the behavior, then it becomes difficult. So we need to sit with them, confront them, and try to follow the steps. Before starting the activity, they should be okay, well fed, they should not be tired, and they should not be irritated or angry or having other negative emotions. So second question, how do we stop children from making deals in order to do a task? So there is a delicate difference between giving the rewards and making a deal. You can sit with the children and clearly mention to them what is expected from them, as we said in communication. So those are the given tasks, they have to do it. For them, for those tasks, their reward is that they are doing good, they are getting appreciation, they are getting applause and things like that. But if the task is something different than what is normally asked for example, if they are helping you with the house chores, or they are doing something which is not their responsibility, in those cases you can help them, give them extra reward, and that will not be a deal. Like anytime they do something and they negotiate with you, what I will get if I do this, what I will get if I do this. So coming out of that, you can explain to them very clearly, this is what is expected from you, this is your job, you have to do that, and you will earn a good reward for that, as we mentioned in our talk. And for the extra work, you have to compensate them in a different way, like because they are going out of the way to help in the household chores. Next question is, how can you make them less selfish and more considerate? So this is a behavioral treatment, this is behavior therapy. If they are a selfish, this is a different means. What do you mean by selfish? They are not empathic, or they are not paying attention, or they are not friendly. So that needs to be looked at, how problematic this is, how difficult this is, because being a selfish is a very harsh word for the children. I think we need to be careful using these words, and we need to help them understand and develop empathy. This is our job. Next question, my child doesn't show interest in the class. So this need to be looked at it. What's happening? Is he being bullied? He's not interested? Is there any learning difficulty? Is there any attention deficit issues? So those problems. So these questions are a bit longer. Needs a further information and evaluation. He has become used to ignoring his studies. He will keenly do him sabak for Quran, but to get the balance with school studies, which we are doing to just keep it going, you know. And matlab very basic, but he doesn't want to do it. And how to limit screen time, I think we did discuss last time, screen time. What is the difference between negative reinforcement and punishment? Negative reinforcement is ignoring, ignoring certain behaviors, and it comes immediately and it comes consistently. And the punishment is like punishment is a little bit a harsh word, but it's very difficult to differentiate between negative reinforcement and punishment. Punishment is usually harsh and disproportionate, maybe, and which is taken as there should not be a personal element in giving the negative reinforcement. There should not only the disliking should be with the behavior, not with the child. Okay, how can you make kids listen to you? I think I said that, do give them the instruction when they are fully attentive, make the eye contact, use the small sentences, small words, and make sure that they understand what you are saying, and ask them to repeat after what you say. Okay, attendance. Okay, there's another question. Attendance dropped to half in settling down this issue. I think if this is that much problematic, we need to seek professional help and talk to them, and particularly ask them more in details what's happening. And this probably need to look into the different areas which are not mentioned here in the questions. My 5.5-year old male child cannot take no for an answer, and he gets very angry and starts screaming and throwing things. So this is a major behavior issue. This kind of behavior issue does not develop overnight. This takes time, and gradually and slowly they develop this kind of behavior. So we need to help sit with them and talk to them and help shape the behavior. If this has gone beyond the safety level, then they should seek the mental health professionals help. Because if they are dangerous, you won't be able to do it yourself, and you need some professional help and advice. If sibling calling them with different names in a funny way, doesn't it affect them? Yes, of course it is affect them, and in Islam it is prohibited to call with the bad names or other names. It's very clear in the hadith. Sometimes kids become greedy for the reward. They want a reward even for daily routine things. How can we avoid that behavior? No, we don't need to avoid that behavior. Essentially, those are the children who are high achiever. They want to excel. So you need to manage that behavior, not to stop that behavior. I think that child who is seeking like this and who are interested in the rewards, they might be a very good kids in order to help develop them good behavior and progress academically as well as socially. So you have to only adjust what you can do and what you cannot do, and talk to them frankly and give them the rewards. So these are the kids who take rewards very seriously and then make a serious effort. I think this is very good. If some child is doing that, it should be properly managed. How can you make them less selfish and more considerate? As I said, selfish is a very harsh term. So this means that you are asking how to develop the empathy. If we are empathic, the children learn from us, and the most of the parents, we all are empathic. So show empathy in front of them and they will learn from you. And there are other, things. It depends upon how much is the problem. Why he is quiet with other people and not with me and my daughter. So this has to be looked into more deep. Sometimes the kids are shy outside and at home they are more frank and more friendly. So that need to be explored a little bit further. I think this is the last question and we'll stop over here. And thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much for listening.